YouTube Live, and it's been a minute since I've gone live, so I'm kind of feeling a little rusty at this. Hopefully things will go smoothly today. But I'm going to show you a pretty quick card that I used, one of the newer Stampin' Up stamp sets. It's called Marvelous Nature, and used it to create a sympathy card. Unfortunately, I needed one of those, you know, it's just one of those things that we all have to make occasionally. But you know, nobody likes making them, but it's nice. I usually try to make a couple of them when I'm making them so that I've got them on hand and don't have to try to come up with a new one every single time I need one. So, hey, Judy, I'm glad you're here. Glad you caught me live. And hey, Karen. And Karen, I'm glad to be back, like I said. And I'm, you know, knocking on everything wooden. So far, I haven't gotten sick, which is kind of odd. I mean, I've traveled not a ton, but recently, but every time I seem to come home with something. But today, not yet. So fingers crossed. So, all right. The trip was fantastic. So thank you all. I appreciate that. The opportunity to be able to go. We had a really good time. And it was actually it's beautiful there. I mean, I've just never seen anything like it. So, all right. And shared tons of pictures on my Facebook page and some on my blog. So go to Facebook and search stampwithamyk.com, or go over to my blog and take a peek at the pictures. I shared some earlier I guess it was last week. Goodness. So, hey, Connie, glad you're here, and Carol as well. All right, so this is the card we're making today. It's actually a pretty simple one. Thought maybe I should you know, kind of take it a little easy, trying to get back into the swing of things, because, yeah, it's been a minute. So, hey, Mary, give a snow day. Oh yeah, my kids got a couple of those, but they tacked them out at the end of the year, so they're getting out of school early and they're thrilled. So, hey, Cindy, glad you're able to catch me live too. All right, so this is the stamp set for most of the card. Obviously, the sentiment didn't come from here because it's got some different ones in it, but it's got some beautiful images and kind of easy to use. Just ink, stamp, done. So, one of my favorite ways to stamp. So, and I did a little stamping on designer series paper. So, yeah, I'll show you in a minute. So, this is the main stamp set that I used, and I also used the timeless arrangements dies, and I used kind of what I'll call the middle sized of the rectangle dies from that to cut out the sentiment, but that's all I used from that one. Excuse me. And then I have the Hope You Know stamp set, and I actually used that. Of course, I say I'm not getting sick, and here I'm still coughing, but goodness. All right, use that for the sentiment on the inside of the card, and then I used the Something Fancy stamp set, and that is what the sentiment on the front of the card came from. So, got a few different stamp sets, but yeah, all good. So, all right, and I'm hoping that I'm still live and still good, because for some reason my video on mine is frozen, but hopefully all good. All right, so speaking too quickly. Well, I'm sorry, Angelica. I try. So that's just kind of how I roll. So hopefully the translator can catch most of it. Otherwise, on the replay, it should hopefully be able to do the translation as well. So, all right. Couple things before we get going. Stampin' Up just announced a new starter kit promotion that will be running for the month of June, and you're going to get $30 extra free in product from Stampin' Up when you join during the month of June. So it's a really awesome promotion. If you're not a demonstrator yet, you should really consider joining. So come hop into our team. We'd love to have you. We're a very relaxed group. Just kind of like to hang out and stamp together, and you know, no pressure, not a high sale, you know, any pressure to have high sales or do parties or anything like that. You can just join and get the discount for yourself. So awesome. All right, let me know if you have any questions about that. Be happy to chat with you about it a little bit more. But again, this starts on June 1st. So, hey, Marilyn, Johanna, I'm glad you're here as well. And Judy, if I didn't say hello, hello. So, Designer Series Paper Sale is starting on June 1st as well. So you're going to get 15% off a select group of Designer Series papers from Stampin' Up. They're from the current annual catalog. There are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, something like that, packs of Designer Series paper that are all 15% off. And again, this will start on the 1st of June. So go take advantage of that. The details are posted on my blog today, and I'll try to remember to post them every single day between now and the 1st of June. So you can go take a look at that and find this flyer there, which has got all the information on it. So, And then the online exclusives, just want to remind you that those are still going on. And we actually just found out that there will be some new ones coming for customers in the month of July. So that's always very exciting. So go take a peek at those when you're in the online store. You can find them by going to the menu, which is on the upper left, and then going to, I think it says view all products or something like that. See all products, and then scroll down to the online exclusives, a little button there. Click on that, and you'll be over in the online exclusives in the online store. So let me know if you have any questions about that. Again, it's linked up on my blog, which is stampwithamyk.com. So you can head over there and click the link, and it'll take you right to it. So, all right, so let's get started on the card after all that yakking. So, all right, we have got a pretty peacock card base. This is one of those cards that will actually work either way. You can, my preferred card fold is the top fold, but that's just my personal preference. If you like the side fold cards, this card will work with a side fold as well. It's a, just a basic card front on it, so nothing different. So if you prefer the 5.5 by 8.5 scored at 4 1/4 card bases, you can do it with that, or you can do what I have used, which is the 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5.5 card base. So whatever one you prefer. And then I've got a little piece of the Earth and Elegance Designer Series paper, which is beautiful. All sides of it are very pretty. But since I was going with the kind of pretty peacock background on it, or theme, I guess, whatever, I don't know. Yeah, theme. That I went with the pretty peacock, but I actually did do stamping on that for the sentiment, so that's where that little piece of paper came from. Going to use a little multi-purpose liquid glue, and we're going to glue this together here. So the paper is cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5, so it should fit over the entire card front, and if I've cut everything correctly, that is. So I'm going to go ahead and stick these together, and the liquid glue gives me just a second to make sure that everything is straight and glued on where I want it to be. So I don't like liquid glue a lot because I usually make a big mess with it, but I do like it when I'm doing a card front like that. So hey, Darlene and Denise, I'm glad you're here as well, and thanks for joining today. Then I've got another piece of the Earth and Elegance Designer Series paper. Again, flip side is that, but we're going to use this one since I like the way it looked a little bit better with the theme I was going with. This is one of those pieces that if you want to try to conserve your cardstock or your Designer Series paper a little bit, you can just cut a little strip off and then stick it on the card front. Sometimes that's almost more difficult because sometimes I don't get them stuck on straight. So usually if I cut a larger piece like this and layer it on, then I get have at least a hope of it going on straight. So that's why I tend to use a little bit larger piece. But again, if you prefer to conserve a little bit and want to use a smaller little piece of cardstock, you can, cut a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch little strip of it that's 5.5 inches tall and stick it on. The piece that I have cut is 4 inches by 5.5 inches, so it should fit again top to bottom. And then I scooted it over to the left just a hair so that it will give you a little peek of the designer paper underneath. And again, if the designer paper underneath, I put it under or over the whole card front. But again, you can conserve a little. If you want to put like a 1/2 inch strip here, you could do that as well. So whatever you prefer. All right, now we're going to finally get to the stamping. So this is yet another piece of the Earth and Elegance Designer Series paper. This one's kind of a, pebble texture. And then backside looks like that. And we're going to do some stamping directly on this. So I have got Pebbled Path ink and the image from the Marvelous Nature stamp set, and just going to ink it up. And I realized I forgot to grab my chamois, so hopefully I can get most of this ink off of here by just tapping it on my paper. I was going to do that, I was going to get it all ready to go, and then of course I forgot. So, all right, so again, Pebbled Path ink, and I'm just going to kind of try to aim for centered on this one. It doesn't need to be perfect because, again, you're going to be layering some things over the top of it, so nobody's going to know if it's exactly in the center or not. And just going to give it a second here. I'm going to smoosh it down really good and hope that I get a good image. Yep, okay, pretty decent image. The other thing with this one is if it doesn't stamp perfectly clear and you get, a little bubbly look or anything with it, it's not a huge deal with this one because you're going to cover most of it up with another layer. So, all right, so I'm taking this and just kind of scrubbing it on my grid paper here, trying to get most of the ink off of it because, again, I forgot to grab my chamois, and it's not wet or anything, so I can't even, I wouldn't even be able to use it because the chamois is sitting over there dry. So planning, like I said, I'm a little rusty. It's been, been too long since I've done one of these. So I've got a piece of basic white cardstock that we're going to stamp on next. And this one is cut to, I don't know, it's about 2 5/8 inches by about 3 3/4 inches. And again, the size on it doesn't really matter as long as it's a little bigger than the stamped image. And I've got Pretty Peacock ink, and we're just going to ink up that same image again in Pretty Peacock ink. All right, there we go. And again, just going to try to get it centered and somewhat straight. Oop, I don't know if I got it very straight. We'll see. If I'm way off the edge of it, I'll flip it over and stamp it a second time. It's not straight, but it's all on there. So we're going to go with it because I'm actually going to trim it down so it won't matter that it's stamped all crazily crooked. All right. Oop, thing's stuck on my trimmer here. So I'm going to start by putting this in the trimmer, and I'll try to scooch it down a little bit so that you can actually see what I'm doing here. Whoop. All right. So I'm trying to line up and get so that this and this are as close to the being straight and as close to the edge as I can get them. I'm going to trim a little bit of it off, so that's quite all right. But trying to get it straight is really kind of the main thing that I was doing with it. Again, it's not perfectly straight, but it's fairly straight, so we're going to go with that. And then it's easier to line it up once you make the first cut, because again, you can see up here where you're cutting at, and you're going to try make sure that this is cutting right down the center of it. All right, trim that off, turn it again, and same thing, just line it up, trim it, and then do the last one here. And all right, there we go. All right, so that's the result we wanted, is getting that trimmed down. And the final size on it, I don't know, is about 2 1/4 by about 3 inches. So again, when you stamp it, if you want to cut it really closely like that, I just recommend putting a larger piece of paper, stamp on it, and trim it down. It's a whole lot easier than trying to cut the piece of paper exactly to the size and then stamp on it straight, because I can never do that. All right, now I'm going to go back to my card base again, and I'm going to stick this on with some liquid glue now that the ink has had a minute to dry. And this one should be cut to, yep, just checking to make sure, is cut to 3 7/8 inches wide by 5 1/2 inches tall. See, I've already stuck my fingers in the liquid glue. I don't know why I make such a mess with it, but I do. So, all right, let me flip this over. Try not to stick my fingers in it again. Come on, there we go. And again, just gonna line it up here on the left-hand side and top and bottom. Try to get everything on there straight. Lots of layers on this one. So you definitely, it's such a pretty set, Karen. You won't be sad if you get it. You're going to want it. So, all right. So the idea to kind of layer these birds one on top of the other, I totally swiped from the catalog. There's a card in there if you go look at it. That's a similar design. So I just swiped the idea because I really liked the way it looked. That I was going to do the same thing. Just layer these up and kind of give it a little, I don't know. I just gave it a little extra. I started out just putting it on there plain without the layering on it, but I actually liked the way the layer looked quite a lot once I actually did it and cut the paper down and all that sort of thing. So there we go, got that on there. Next thing that I did is I got a little piece of linen thread, and I'm just going to tie a bow, hopefully. And I do the little rabbit ear bows where I make the 2 loops, cross them over each other, and then tie the knot. So pretty simple, just a little bow here. And I'm going to grab my snips and trim it down once I get it kind of to the size that seems reasonable. So I think that one looks good. Yeah, I saw Mary posted a card with this same stamp set today, so it's a pretty one, and it's really easy to use actually. So, all right, got a little mini glue dot here that I'm going to stick my linen thread bow to the card front. And again, I can stick it and it's going to look yucky, but nobody will see it because you're going to cover it up with the sentiment, so it can look as icky as it wants to. All right, there we go. So I've got that stuck on there. The next thing I did was actually stamped the sentiment on this piece of Designer Series paper. I got stuff everywhere. Paper is sticking to things. All right, so sentiment again is from the Something Fancy stamp set, and we're going to stamp it in Pretty Peacock ink. Oh, thanks so much, Karen. I appreciate that. All right. Got it inked up here well. And I'm just going to scoot it down a little bit from my previous stamped image. And, aw, thank you, Bonnie and Judy. I appreciate that. So, all right. going to close that up before I stick my fingers in it. And somehow when I was making this card, the sample for it, I ended up with pretty peacock ink everywhere. It was a mess. So, all right, again, going to grab the Timeless Arrangements dies. These are all from the Stampin' Up! Annual Catalog. And I'm just going to take this to my die cutting machine, which is right over here to my left, and I'm going to run it through the die cutting machine to cut out the sentiment. So I will be right back. All right, almost got it. And of course my die scooted. All right. Ooh, there we go. So there's my little die cut sentiment. It is a little bit muted on here, so hopefully you can still see it. If you want it to be a little bit more, stand out a little bit more, you can certainly stamp it and heat emboss it. So you could use gold or copper or black or even white. So it just depends on what the look you want with it. But I was trying, I don't know, like I said, I kind of wanted it to keep everything in the same color scheme. So that was what I did. So, all right, I'm going to grab some Stampin' Dimensionals to stick my sentiment on here. And I'm actually going to use, going to stick them on the card front here rather than sticking them on the back of the sentiment, just so that I make sure that I stick them around my little bow here, because I want to make sure that I don't end up with one stuck right on top of that. Whoop. I totally just untied the bow, but that's okay because that's an easy fix. So let me show you what I did. When I was messing around here and not looking, I got a hold of the end of the string and pulled it out. But the bonus is, again, since it's going to be hidden, I can just stick it right back to the glue dot and nobody will know that the bow is not tied. Well, except you and I will know because it's on video and I made a mess. So, all right. So let me stick the sentiment on before I mess anything else up here. All right. Stick that on with the dimensionals. And then I'm going to grab a couple of the dots, the in color, they are 20, 23 to 25 in color dots. And I'm going to use the copper clay dots here. So I'm going to stick them around here near the sentiment. Stick a larger one on. And then a smaller one down here. And then the smallest one over here. I think that'll work. With these, sometimes I have trouble with them. The backing, the sticky part stays stuck on the sheet and then the top comes off. And that's not really very useful because you can't really stick it on anything without the adhesive on the back of it. So one of the little tips that I use with these is when I'm going to peel one off, I actually will bend the backing and then stick my thumb right up underneath the little dot and I'll lift it off with my thumb or my finger, whatever. But usually if I kind of start it by popping just the edge of it off, then it comes off much easier and the backing stays on it rather than stuck on the sheet and you're holding the rest of the little dots. So hopefully that helps you if you have trouble with them. Some of them seem to do it a little bit more than others, but if you have trouble with that, then give that a whirl. All right, so the inside of the card kept pretty simple. Yay, like I said, I'm a little out of practice. I'm feeling very rusty at this. I mean, it's only been, what, 2 weeks, and I still feel like I'm fumbling around and hardly know what I'm doing. So got my sentiment here from the Hope You Know stamp set. And again, Pebbled Path ink. So, all right, gonna ink that up. And I've got basic white cardstock that's cut to about 4 by 5 1/4. Again, all the measurements will be on my blog post tomorrow, and I will link it up in the description of this video once the post goes live around 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time tomorrow. And again, that was Pebbled Path ink. If I didn't say that, I don't know, I get talking and can't remember what I've said and what I haven't. So this is a little piece of the Designer Series paper that I had cut for the card front. It's the little 1/2 inch that I trimmed off. And we're just going to stick that to the bottom with some Stampin' Seal to finish. Whoop. There we go. I'm showing you all the messes that I make. I ran the adhesive off the edge, so if you do that, like I do frequently, and you don't want everything to be glued together on the inside of your card, just take your finger and roll the adhesive back onto the paper, and then it won't be sticking out the bottom, and you know, you won't have a mess, hopefully, like I just nearly had. So, all right. So sticking that on with Stampin' Seal, and then we're going to adhere this to the inside of the card. It looks like I've got a little bit that I need to trim off here. Before I stick it down. So let me grab my paper snips. So, and just trim off the very edge here. There we go. get rid of that, and then flip this over, and we'll stick this on the inside of the card. And we're going to be all done for today. So there you go. That's it for the inside. And then going to flip it closed here and do a quick crease across the top with the bone folder. And we're all done. So there you go. So this is my card I made ahead of time. This is the one we made here today. So like I said, pretty simple, just a few layers on it. Yeah, I do make messes a lot. And so I always try to share how to fix the messes, because I figure everybody else, well, not everybody makes as many messes as I do, but I figure if I figured out how to fix it, I'll help you, because it'll happen eventually. So, all right, so that's it for my card today. Kept it pretty simple. Like I said, hopefully I'll be a little smoother, a little more practiced, and remember a few things by the time this rolls around on Friday around 2 o'clock Eastern Time. I will plan to go live again, and then again next week, Tuesday around 2 o'clock Eastern Time here on my YouTube channel. So I appreciate you all being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy, I guess, it's kind of a holiday weekend. I think most of the kids are out of school. My kids still have, one has another week and a half, and the other one has 2 weeks left, and they'll be done. So then they'll be around and in my hair all the time. So, all right. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And if you have any questions, drop by my blog post tomorrow. There will be a PDF tutorial out there to recreate this, and it'll have all the measurements, all the products used, and all that good stuff on it as well. So again, we will chat with you all soon.